This week we read about the famous story of Korach and his followers rebelling against Moshe Rabbeinu. Korach comes to Moshe and says, "Hey Moshe, it doesn't make sense. You are the leader of the Jewish people. Your brother Aaron, he's the high priest. I'm a Levi too. I deserve a position of leadership." What was his motivation? Jealousy. What was his end? He was wiped out. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, chapter 5, Mishnah 20, says, you want to know what is the paradigm of an unhealthy dispute? It's Korach and his followers rebelling against Moshe Rabbeinu. That argument. Says the Mishnah, any dispute which is for the sake of heaven will be everlasting. Any dispute which is not for the sake of heaven will not last. What is the example of a dispute which is for the sake of heaven? It's those disputes between Shammai and Hillel, the elders, the sages in the Talmud, who had many disputes with each other about areas of Jewish law. What is the example of a dispute that is not for the sake of heaven? It is Korach and his followers. And you stop after reading this Mishnah and you wonder to yourself, did I just read that correctly? The rabbis say, any dispute which is for the sake of heaven will be everlasting. Shouldn't it be the opposite? Is that a good thing? What are you expecting to say? Hey, if your dispute has if you have good intentions and holy intentions, when you're arguing, don't worry. Your argument won't last. It will end okay. And they say the opposite. What's going on? Rabbi Mordechai Kamenetsky of Torah.org gives a beautiful, beautiful answer. He says the Torah, the rabbis in Pirkei Avot, and the ethics of our fathers are giving us a litmus test to know if you're having a healthy dispute. Ask yourself before you argue, is this thing that I'm about to argue about going to make a difference in 10 years? Will it be like the argument of Shammai and Hillel? Those disputes still exist. They have lasted for thousands of years. They're still being studied in study halls around the globe. Every Hanukkah, in yeshivot, all over the world, the famous dispute between Shammai and Hillel about how to light the menorah is still being studied today. And that's what we should ask ourselves before we get into an argument. Is what we're about to argue about worth it? Is it going to make a difference in 5 years, or next month, or tomorrow? There's a great story, a powerful story, a sad story, about a couple, an American man married to an Israeli woman. And they would often get into arguments about trivial things. And the woman's response to her husband was always, Zeh Lo Chashuv. It's not important. Why are we arguing about this? And it would drive him nuts. What do you mean it's not important? This is important to me. One summer, they were in their bungalow colony in the mountains, and the husband would travel back and forth. He would go to New York, his job during the week, and come back home for Shabbos. And before he left, they got into a typical argument. And his wife's response was a typical response, Zeh Lo Chashuv. It's not important. Why are we arguing? And it really bothered him. It bugged him. And he left back to New York. That whole week, they never really made up. Bothered him a lot. And he was on his way back up to the bungalow colony the next Shabbos. He gets a call that he should rush as quick as possible. His wife just had a heart attack. By the time he got to the mountains, his wife was dead. And those last words, Zeh Lo Chashuv, rang in his ears. He understood finally what she meant. It just wasn't worth it. It didn't make a difference. 2 days later. Have a great Shabbos.